Hey guys, it's your favorite sisters with the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. On the show, you'll hear caregivers confessing the good, the bad, and the completely unexpected. You're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, lead with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Now, let's get to today's confession. Hey Jay.
Good morning, Natalie.
And how are you doing?
I'm feeling really fantastic today.
You know, we have a celebrity with us today.
I know.
Oh
and because of that, you promised not to sing.
Oh, no. We are family. I got all my sisters with me.
Oh, man, I didn't even think she would bring that one up. You really pulled that one out.
I really did pull that one out because Elizabeth is definitely a sister and we love her. And so we could banter all day.
Yeah.
But I want you to tell our guests about
it's my turn.
Because she's
it's my turn.
Awesome. And she's
okay, and I'm not going to let all the surprises out, but
okay.
I first need to tell everyone that we met Elizabeth at the first event Natalie and I ever attended back in November of
We couldn't
22.
even spell it.
Yeah, we didn't know how to, we couldn't. And so she was a force to be reckoned with. And I'm going to tell you that Elizabeth is fierce. That's a better term. What is important to know are the words that she said to us during that very last day. She said, if you need anything or if I can help you, let me know. And she already said that this morning on our phone call.
That's why we love her.
And I know that is how she is, though, in all aspects of her life. Her story is about caregiving, caring for aging parents with chronic and terminal illnesses and for a sibling with developmental disabilities. And that story has inspired her to do so much more. She is changing the face of caregiving in Atlanta, in the U.S., and really worldwide with all of her experiences. And we are so excited to have her here. I feel like we're going to have a great day because she's like a wealth of knowledge. We learn all kinds of stuff from her all the time.
Right? So excited.
All right, we're ready. Let's get started, Natalie.
Oh, let's do it. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Hello, sisters. Yeah. Wonderful to be here.
Very, very exciting. Well, so we normally, JJ always laughs and makes fun of me because I'm like, okay, let's start from the beginning. You were born and then skip forward. So you've got quite the caregiving journey and then what you've done with it after, which is pretty amazing. I mean, and you're still a caregiver. I mean, you're not retired. Good try. Like it just keeps going. So tell us a little bit about your family, because this is caregiving for family. And I bet you snuck in some caregiving for some other people though, too. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah. I think we were all caregiving before we knew we were caregiving. I mean, in reality, I've been a sibling support caregiver my entire life. I have my older brother was born with a developmental and intellectual disability. So I was exposed and, had to kind of learn how to help, where I could there. Yeah. But really, I'm one of the 6 kids. So in a big family, someone always needs care.
Yeah.
Because we reproduce, we have lots of cousins and we've got a big family. So I'll never be bored. I'm always going to find somebody.
Are you Catholic? You can tell.
I was born Catholic.
There you go.
Okay. First confession though, my husband was born Jewish, or he's Jewish, more cultural, I would say, than a religious Jewish man. And I converted to be a Methodist when my kids were small at first, so I could get them into the Methodist preschool. I know I'm probably
I support that. No, you're not going to hell.
But I did.
Forgives.
I really, really, it happened all at a great time. Like before my life started crumbling, where we joined that church, and I loved it. Oh. And we had some amazing events, upward soccer and all that. But going back, so I'm Jan and the Brady Bunch. I'm the middle daughter, 3 boys, 3 girls. And I, my parents had chronic comorbidities is what we call it. Like I called it affectionately a cocktail of different things. Mm-hmm. They were not healthy really my entire adult life. So, but things really started to spiral in 2014, where it was like one hospitalization after another. We thought my mom was going to die. She was intubated. She's kind of sprung back. And as soon as she got back through rehab, my dad got sick. My parents lived 6 hours from me in Georgia, and we were the closest family to them, me and my brothers that live here in Atlanta. And they were in their dream home and they wanted to age in place. I didn't know it was called that, but we had like mini interventions. I wrote tearful letters, emails, phone calls, dinners out, like, this is not working. You all need to move. That did not happen.
Were they in
So
Florida? I'm an interrupting cow.
they're in Florida.
I
Yes.
figured. I mean, it's the mecca of all aging places.
Yes, they lived in a beautiful place. They lived in Amelia Island, Florida.
Oh my gosh.
But they probably didn't put their toes in the sand.
Okay.
They could see it, but probably at least the last 10 years that they lived there. I mean, it was just too much for them. We hired in help to help with them with some personal care and activities. And then we were their people, all of their kids. And they made it very clear that when they needed us, we were to come. And that was the way it was going to be. So
Wow.
Did you have a job? I have to interrupt as well. Were you working at that time when you had children?
Working, raising kids. Yes, I had two middle school kids. One was getting ready to start high school.
Oh.
I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. I had to leave conferences early, and lots of 6-hour drives back and forth from Atlanta to Georgia, which is kind of where this whole Happy Healthy Caregiver thing, the little seedlings were planted in some of those thought drives of a lot of time to think. So my parents had a lot. They were COPD, sleep apnea, heart disease, autoimmune diseases, depression, morbid obesity. They were a cocktail of different stuff. They were essentially posters of what not to do with your life, healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
And I say all this with the other thing of and they were amazing. I love my parents, so, but, made bad health choices. And at the same time, my husband, Jason, so I have a daughter, Natalie, and a husband, Jason. So
clearly, wow, we were meant to be besties.
Yes. And my husband, Jason, was caring for his mom who had lung cancer at the same time. So we were double stacked sandwich generation caregivers, not knowing that that's what we were called. So that was 2014. And long story short, my dad died in 2014. His mom died in 2014. So we both lost a parent that shitty year. So we call that our spiral year. And at that point, we were kind of in this worst case scenario, because if I'm being honest, again, confession time, dad would have been okay. My dad would have been okay had my mom passed first, but he was the primary caregiver of my mom and of my brother. And so that's what we see, right? In a lot of older couples is that the strong one declines fast and rapidly. And that's definitely what happened in my dad's case. So then we're kind of in this worst case scenario. We have my brother and my mom 6 hours from family. What are we going to do? So my parents used to live in Atlanta. So at least we felt like they kind of knew what this was like. And my mom clearly could not live on her own anymore, although she didn't know that. She definitely thought she could.
How old was your mom at the time?
Oh, gosh. She was early 70s.
So she's early 70s. How old's your brother?
My brother is 61 now. So maybe,
51, 10 years ago.
Yeah. 51.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's, and we're all kind of have kids, my siblings, most of us are having kids and stuff and raising kids and working for sure. So anyway, long story short, we moved mom to Atlanta. She lived in an assisted living. I've moved her twice while she was here because I picked the first one for certain reasons and then learned a lot and picked the second one for better reasons. Oh. And it was not quite a fit. My mom was kind of spoiled, wanted that on-demand care, which they could never provide.
Right.
So that was definitely a crazy year and a half. It's hard to say that it was a year and a half because it felt like 10 years. So, but that's really what it was a year and a half. We moved my brother in with my other brother who was a bachelor. And he was also in the Atlanta area. So we felt okay, they're kind of together. Tom can go visit my mom. His name's Tom, my brother with a disability. And so that worked for a while until it didn't. And it was mom's health started changing, but not quite to the point where she needed skilled nursing. She was the young person in that group where she felt like she didn't have a lot in common with the people there. So my older sister, Susie, her kids had all graduated, were settling into their life. She'd gotten a divorce. She was like, I'm going to take mom. And I thought she was crazy. And I
that is exactly our story.
That's exactly our story. You should turn around, don't drown.
You should turn around, don't drown. And so my sister Susie cared for my mom for the 4 years beyond that.
Oh, wow.
And moved her from her home in Pennsylvania to Michigan, first from Georgia. We are so good at moving. moving people at
You're a
that point.
transient people.
Yes. And just like selling the condo and all of the things that we had to do, like while we were still grieving our dad back, back when we had moved her from Florida.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then mom lived in Michigan. Michigan was where my sister ended up buying my parents' summer home. So they lived in Florida. They had a summer house in Hubbard Lake, Michigan. It's beautiful, middle of nowhere though. And my sister went up there. She's an artist. She's like, I'm going to paint, take care of mom. It's going to be amazing. I'm not sure it was amazing, and my brother lived with her for some parts of that too. Like my brother Tom ended up being kind of like a snowbird. He would move back and forth between Georgia and Michigan. And partly that came to be as like a caregiving necessity because he was fighting with us he drives and he wanted to drive on icy roads. He's a big guy. He's, can be very forceful about the way he says things. And we just were like, this isn't working. So he lives, cold months in Georgia, warm months in Michigan. And that's still the plan today. We're in a new phase. So mom passed away in 2020. And we're in a new phase of life where we're sibling caregivers full time, right? Like we were caring for him when my mom was sick for sure, because the last 2 years, my mom was bedridden and on hospice for her life. So when a lot of help happening from her, for many years. So we were figuring it out. But now we're in this new phase of like trying to navigate the intellectual and developmental disability care world, especially as an adult. Like I feel like there's a lot of resources for young people.
There is.
But he's 61 years old and he's been kind of like, I forget who said this to me recently, but they were like, your parents really isolated him. And I'm like, yeah, they did isolate him. Like he's been not integrated with other people like him. And so now we're kind of like approaching some of those topics and thinking about his long-term care plans and trying to get him more integrated with people I think he'll have it more in common with, and he'll have like social self-care. So that was a lot. I don't know if that was very quick, but
no, that was like,
oh
my
I
gosh.
like how you're like forcing it out. You're like, here's the thing. It's totally fine. Because we're going to ask you like 1,000 questions, and just know that we're interrupting cows. We just moo all over. We moo all over the place, like moo interrupted. So like, there's so much stuff like to unpack really, because, so I need to step back. I need the birth order of people.
Okay. I got an oldest brother.
Okay. No
help. Consistent. I call him, my word for him is consistent. He's been consistent my whole life. So why would he be more help in caregiving? Like he never babysat us. He never took us anywhere. He never was a help to my parents. He might think he was like, who I'm talking about. So that's him. He's not going to listen to this. So it's going to be fine.
At least it's consistent.
I'm not even sure he knows exactly what I do. And to the point where like, I remember one time he bought me a gift for the holidays. It was cute. He kind of made these business cards for my little sister and I, and he spelled my name wrong. I love that. But I have to say that because I feel like that just kind of clarifies it, right? So that's my oldest. Then I have my sister Susie. She's 11 years older than me. She is like the new matriarch of our family.
Okay.
She is the epitome of who you want to take care of you. She's a great cook. She keeps a great house. She's got this artist thing. She's so sweet and endearing and has been a fabulous mother to her kids. So that's Susie. Then I have my brother Tom, who needs care. So developmental intellectual disability. Then I have my brother Tim, who lives in Atlanta. My oldest brother and my brother Tim live in Atlanta. And Tim has no kids, was married, for a little bit, lives alone. And he is a great help in the caregiving realm and in life. But you have to be very specific about what you need. Like you got to be like, I need you to do this on this day at this time. Like he would do it. So like when mom lived in assisted living, like he ended up taking over her grocery shopping because I was barely grocery shopping for my family, I felt like. So, and she didn't need a lot, but she needed her ginger ale and her
mom needs her Cokes and chocolate.
Clementines. Yes. All the little things that make her happy, or made her happy, I should say. Okay. And then there's a 6-year gap. So then there's after my brother, and then there's me. And the reason why there's a 6-year gap is because my mom lost her first husband to leukemia. So my older 4 siblings look Italian because their dad was Italian. So we're technically a blended family, although they were young. You know, my Tim, who was the next up for me, was like 2, if that, when his dad died. So they don't, some of them don't even remember their dad, frankly. Yeah. So then she married my dad, and they had me and my sister. So I have a little sister that lives in DC. So sister in Michigan, sister DC, brother Snowbird, other brothers here.
Wait a second before you go, because I can tell you're going to say something, Jay. We need to take a break. We'll be right back.
I'm ready.
Hey, ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the Sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day, and the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the U.S. and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing.
Hey, everybody, we're back here with Elizabeth. We're talking about a lot of sibling care, but the requirements when you're communicating with multiple siblings on who's not super consistent, who needs a lot of direction, and what you need to do to make a family work.
This is really good too, because I'm loving the siblings. So, okay, so we've talked about, we've talked about your dad, we talked about your mom, and in high level and talking about your brother. And I know that, especially now that we know that Tom is your brother, that you and the siblings have committed to supporting, because I mean, that's every family with a child that has disabilities is going to have to face that. The Schlessel sisters that we met with, they have Buddy, who is second born out of the 4 of them. And they absolutely think about who's going to take care of Buddy after mom and dad are gone. And so I think that's so important. But before we get to him, there's 6 of you guys, and your parents are living down in Florida. And what's the communication like about, like, hey, think mom and dad got some stuff going on. Think we ought to step in. What's that like? Do you all talk about money, or do you all have a separate text group? Or like us, we have multiple text groups to talk about each other too?
I mean, luckily my dad was like a money man. Like he knew he had things pretty buttoned up, and even had the foresight. Like my mom and my dad had a trust, made it very easy when they passed away. Like he was prepared. He did all of that stuff amazingly right. He had a special needs trust for my brother. Wow. My brother gets Social Security disability insurance. So like, thank you so much. Like, thank you, for putting all that together. And, we also didn't have the financial burden that people have. My parents had retired. My dad was, owned his own company, sold his company in his early 50s, and they lived at the beach, like amazing. Like I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, but the silver spoon came later for them in life. So that was nice.
Yeah.
That gave us a lot of peace of mind. And, when he passed, we would have their numbers of people to call. We would have little financial meetings with their financial planner on like how much money was left for my mom. And, we were starting to kind of sweat it out near the end. Like we were going to run out. We would have definitely run out had she stayed in assisted living that whole time that she passed after dad. But most of the communication, like we loved the Caring Bridge app for when my parents were in hospital.
Me too.
Thing. Like it was, and even to the point, like when my dad was in the hospital and my mom could not go because she was not healthy enough to be able to go visit him. It was her lifeline too, like reading all the comments, writing letters to Larry and Caring Bridge, and people sharing photos. Like it was kind of like her feeling like she was doing something through that app. So that was a big thing. And then, a lot of times it's like, hey, this is happening. Can you call like the siblings? Like we would get the personal touch on some of these sad decisions and things that were happening. So yeah, but mostly it was complaining and like, what the heck are they thinking?
Yeah.
If there was ever a disagreement, like for example, you said your sister said, okay, I'm going to take mom on. She's going to move in with me. So was there you were like shaking your head like, no, turn around, don't turn around.
Was there
If there was
staff
ever,
meeting?
yeah, was there ever a time when there was a disagreement on care? Did you guys kind of work that out, or somebody just took the lead?
I mean, I would say the closest thing we've had to like a fight,
Yeah.
it's been recent, which is where, my sister, this thing with my brother, Tom, and like getting him more integrated with people who are like him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a community in the Atlanta area, and it has like a year or 2 year waiting list. And it's kind of a unicorn for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There's like one in Austin, one in Illinois, and one in Swanee, Georgia, which is like 45 minutes from me. So those conversations have been tough where like, we don't necessarily all agree on what's best for him. But my littlest sister is kind of a good buffer between Susie wants kind of everything at home.
Yeah.
I want him to have friends and like at least experience this. Like we can always change our minds.
Yeah.
Right.
What if this is amazing for him? Like right now, I'm his person that goes to play bingo and goes to Sonny's barbecue. Like I would like to him for have friends. So, we talk about the goals and things like that. And my sister is definitely worried about the money more so. So there's that. And then the little sister is kind of, she helps kind of, and we're not like, we're great. Like, don't get me wrong, sister power. Like we
absolutely.
Oh no, we're the same, but sometimes we argue.
Yeah. Yes.
We love each other, but sometimes we argue. Because here's the reality. If you don't argue, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. So I'm like, you got to get a little mad every now and then and be like, I don't agree with that. Because I didn't agree with my sisters about mom. I didn't agree with it.
We're all different people, right? Like, so, my little sister has her own business. She has to work a lot. She's growing her, media company in DC. So a media PR kind of company. My oldest sister, she's not been in the corporate world, so may not have the complete understanding of that. And
she blows to a different breeze though as an artist.
Yeah, she's an artist, nurturing, sometimes she fed her kids breakfast every morning before they go to school. I was gone before my kids went to school. Like I was like, here's the cereal counter. Don't turn on the oven. I remember like we taught them how to make scrambled eggs. I literally made breakfast for them. If it was the first day of school or they had a big test, I would stay home and make breakfast. Otherwise, so we've just had parented very differently in some ways too. So the nurturing part is like innate in my sister, and I am more of a tough love, like pushing it and being like, well, this is part of what they need for their own physical and occupational therapy, or, they can do this themselves, or what, all of that. So I push it, there. And Annie, my little sister, is somewhere kind of in the middle, but we are sister power. In fact, we used to do this thing like during the spiral years of like literally like Wonder Twins, but we were Wonder triplets, where we would put our things together and we were like sister power.
I love that.
Like when stuff was really, really bad and we would cry and so like, yes, but we are the three sisters that make it all happen. Like, between us all, we make it happen.
So where are your brothers in this?
I mean, one brother is like,
he's consistent.
Consistent. Other brother is like, needs care. And then Tim we pull him in as needed.
Yeah. So and he's PRN.
He appreciate what's PR?
PR as needed.
Oh,
as a medication term. He's like PRN, you take it as you need it.
Yes. We're like, well, just, he knows just enough, because also like Tim hasn't had kids. Like and I hate saying it that way too, but it's like, he doesn't have as much patience with my brother. He just doesn't. And I think he's not a woman.
Yeah.
So,
Understood. So I'm always curious about this. So your parents, of course, have passed, and then you've got your brother, and you guys are making all these decisions. But we need to talk about you. So this is, today we're going to talk about you.
We're going to talk about you.
So you have kids, you have a career. I know your husband. You guys are working, busy family, living in traffic land, that being Atlanta.
Yeah.
So what is going on with you? Like, we're going to talk about mental, we're going to talk about physical, like what's going on?
You taking care of yourself?
I mean, so I was trying, like, I've always battled my weight. Like I've got these, 2 examples of like, okay, I'm not going to be morbidly obese. I'm not going to have mobility issues. Like, and this is part of my gene pool. That's not great. So I was already like doing stuff. Like I had, I'd run a half marathon. I've always kind of worked out like my entire adult life. So some of that stuff was still happening. I had to be very intentional about it and talk to my husband, Jason, about like how we were going to kind of fit it in. I don't like myself if I haven't worked out in 2 days. Like I don't want to be in my own skin.
Yeah.
I have general anxiety and I have hypothyroidism. So I definitely have to like pay attention to some of the hormone and the anxiety stuff that I've got to cope with. But back at that time was gaining weight, had to up my prescription for anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
My face was like so bad, so broken out, not sleeping great, struggling between like, do I work out or should I get more sleep? Like that was kind of always the constant kind of pull there. Didn't have a lot of time for relationships. Like my husband and I were just kind of like passing ships. Hey, you got this, I got this. And it was more like we were business partners.
Yeah. Don't forget the kids.
Don't pick somebody up. Partners. Oh, you happen to procreate as well.
Yes. Yeah. And then the kids part, like, I mean, I've had my kids on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast because I kind of wanted to know how they survived all of this and like how they came out of it. But I will say, like, I think it has helped make them like really good human beings right now. Like they're young adults who are great, but it was a necessity to like literally sit them down and be like, look, we've got too much happening. And so if you want to have any fun in your life with us, we're going to need you to step up. So we said, school is your job. We expect you to check your blogs, to do this and that, like literally like, this is your job. Yeah. We are not asking you to go out and get another work because we're expecting you to get this done. These are the things you're going to do around the house. You're going to have to get yourself to school. You're going to have to blah, blah, blah. So, and they did it. Yeah. I think they missed school, like the bus one time, maybe 2 times, and literally like called a neighbor to take them to school. Like knew they couldn't even call me to be like, well, we missed the bus. They just figured it out.
You have great kids. Like
they're
kids.
They are.
You know what
kids.
you
You're
built?
Right.
What you did is you built resilient children.
And they're independent.
Taught them resilience and you taught them independence and gave them the opportunity to be independent. And some people, there'll be people who are like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. But I look at our own mom and our mom worked, our dad worked, and our mom still did all the traditional female responsibilities in the house.
Oh, the invisible labor.
Yes.
Oh,
and so that would be correct. And so mom tried it. I hear you because Mom would have leave boiled eggs on the oven for us, or she'd start, oatmeal or leave it and just.
But what a great option! You didn't have Pop-Tarts, which is not a breakfast food, by the way.
It's totally fine. Like so dessert. Is Lucky Charms is fine too, especially if you eat just the marshmallows and put the other ones back, and JJ doesn't know it.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, there are definitely times for that, and like the thing is like I wouldn't have pushed my kids if I didn't think they were capable of doing it. Like if they had needs of things that they needed to do. Like I love to master a carpool. Like one of the things I had going for me as a caregiver is like, I am an organized, productive person. And I think that helps me as an entrepreneur too. Like I can take on more than the average bear. You know what I mean? Like but I do know that I have a limit. Like I'm not a superwoman. So, and they have been exposed to some of that. So like, but carpools, like we project managed it. We project managed caregiving.
I love that.
She's very practical. I do like that you are Natalie. It's like to the extent of, okay, make the list. Now who's done this? Who's done this?
Yes.
Who's done this? She's like, we are not going to.
And Emily yells at me, Elizabeth. Emily yells at me. She's like, stop talking to me like like I'm an employee. And I'm like, act like
someone has to project manage it. Yeah. Like somebody has to do it. The thing is though, is like what's different about it than work. And this is the part that I've had to be better at is like, you can't project manage your emotions. And, you can also, you can kind of project manage your self-care to some degree, but like getting the activities done, but it's not going to work if you're not really tuned in, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like I can go and do the things, but unless I'm really like feeling the feels, it's not going to work. So that part has really, I've had to work on that. So like, even in my business, the Happy Healthy Caregiver stuff, like the beginning of me is like, it's all focused on physical self-care, eating right, exercising, like even sleep didn't come till later. It wasn't it's throughout these 9 years that I've really discovered like all the different categories of self-care, like the important for social self-care, spiritual, professional, practical, emotional, social, like all of it, financial, like it's all part of it. Like you've got to really tune into all pieces of it.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second, because we're going to take a break and I want to come back into those categories.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you like confessions, we have another podcast we'd love to recommend, the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast with Elizabeth Miller. As a fellow Whole Care Network podcaster, we love how Elizabeth chats it up with family caregivers and dives into their caregiving and self-care strategies. Just like us, Elizabeth believes that family caregivers are the experts in caregiving. Beyond the informative conversations, Elizabeth reveals the tried and true resources and practical self-care tips that empower caregivers to prioritize their health and happiness. You can find the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast wherever you download your favorite podcast or go to the website at happyhealthycaregiver.com.
All right, we are back here with Elizabeth Miller, and she just said something that hit me hard. She said, you cannot manage your emotions. And I will pop back to what we were talking about, Elizabeth, when you talked about caring for yourself and the impact of you personally, because everything that you said, that's me. You know, you talk about, I gain weight. That's probably my hardest thing. I have severe anxiety. So those things, if somebody out there is experiencing that, that's not uncommon. And for me, that was, 40 pounds when we started moving mom around, up the prescription. Like, am I going crazy? And my husband said the same thing. You are losing it. You named multiple,
like 14 categories.
Yeah,
I want to go through your categories of self-care, because here's the thing that I hate, because I totally interrupted you, Jay, but I hate the word self-care because it's so used, like collaboration is used all the time. So let's like break it down. And I loved how you said, let's talk about categories of self-care, because I think that's so important, because this comes back under tips and resources. And so let's just kind of break it down of how the different ways that you can impact your physical health and wellness through different types of self-care strategies.
I want to toss in there. Elizabeth has a podcast, first of all.
She does. Yeah.
Happy Healthy Caregiver. And somewhere in all of this, like 2015, she actually started all of this. So she's
in her busy life.
In her busy life.
So I'll just start this.
She's a plethora of information.
It's so stupid.
Let's get going on those.
How stupid was I thinking I could be an entrepreneur? Like, here's the thing, y'all. Like, it was saving me. Like, first it was a blog before it was a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, the writing saved me. And then, that's why the journal came about, is I wanted other people to try that on the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. So it's been a layered cake. So like, I didn't come out as the whole cake, like, and I'm still layering my cake and taking off layers and things like that. But at first it was the blog. Right. And there's another confession. Like, when I first started writing, I wrote anonymously. Like, it was just, and I thought, this is not really who I am. Like, I'm the person who wants to share the things that are going to work for other people, potentially for them to try it on and like save them the pain and the worry of it. So it was like, that was kind of the first grapple of like, I'm just going to put this out there. And it was less worried about me, the vulnerability of me, but more worried about like, is my mom going to be okay with me talking about her? Is my siblings going to be so far, like, they haven't burned my house down. Like, nothing.
Winning.
Yeah. And my brother, Tim, like the one right up from me, shares my content better than anybody, any of my friends, any of my siblings. He's like, so sweet. Yes.
I love that.
And I think he listens to all the podcasts too. So like, he's great. Okay. But back to the self-care thing. So, but yes, I was crazy, but it was self-care for me. It was emotional self-care to journal and kind of lighten my load. And what I found is that the more I was sharing and the more transparent I was, the more clearly I saw myself.
Yeah.
And that was good. But the physical part was kind of like a game for me at first. And I'll be the first one to tell both of y'all in the whole world, I don't have this weight management thing figured out yet. Like, I am a healthy person and I'm a happy person, but I am not a skinny person. So, and
I don't think I'll ever be a skinny person.
I'm
Let's
not
toss that out there.
I don't even know what skinny would look like.
I don't know.
I was born this big.
and here's the thing, like I've come to terms as a 52-year-old woman, like I don't want to live my life without red wine and pizza. Like
Absolutely.
I'm not doing it. So, but it's
you
a
said something
balance.
important. You said, but I'm healthy. And that's the key.
I'm
And when you talk
healthy.
about exercising and things like that, it sounds like just getting outside and just doing that. And taking care of
Wellness.
yourself. Yeah. Wellness.
Yes.
I love.
Yes. Exactly. It's not happy, skinny caregiver. It's not. It's not.
If I'm turning that off, if you change the name, Happy Skinny Caregiver, that is not me.
I'm like, it's funny. That's like the skinny bee.
But
That's
it, you know, it
hilarious.
was a game for me, and it still is a game. Like I love to try on self-care habits and see what's worked. So you'd asked about the categories. We talk physical. People know what that is, right?
Yeah.
But I would add like drinking water, you know, all of that stuff is physical. Emotional, journaling, meditating, like whatever is going to make you feel the feels, therapy, all of that. Financial, making sure you're staying on your budget, that you've got a plan of how you're going to pay for stuff, that you got your POAs and, you know, all of your things together, which we have. My husband and I did that last year. I was like, we've got to get this done. I'm not creating havoc for my kids. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spiritual. So whether you're, you know, go to faith communities or not, like whatever your spirituality is, nature is very important for me. Like I know this about myself, that in addition to not liking myself when I don't work out, I don't like it when I haven't been outside. So I go outside every day and I spend at least 15, 20 minutes, unless it's really, really, really bad weather. And then I might sit on my porch and wish I was outside. But so whatever that is for people, that spiritual part, practical. Now I'm good at this part too. Like sometimes it's cleaning off your desk. Sometimes it's getting your paperwork together. Sometimes it's getting organized and making things sustainable. Like that is self-care, because for me, like a litmus test of self-care is like, is it going to give me peace of mind? Is it going to energize me? Or is it just plain fun? And if it hits those things for me, that's self-care. And so practical self-care is like clearing off my desk and doing some of these things eliminates worries and gives me peace of mind. Yeah. Intellectual self-care is also, I think I missed saying that one earlier, but like I'm learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm going to do my Wordle and my connections every morning. I'm going to learn about developmental disabilities and how I can better support my brother. I'm going to learn about medications that are out there. And so all of that stuff. And then just reading for fun, like is a big part of my life. I love to read. Social self-care. We're doing it.
Yep.
We're doing it right now.
Oh yeah.
Just connecting with other people,
Yeah.
You know, my book club. Sometimes you can combine these things, and I could go on a hike with my girlfriends, or I can play pickleball with my husband, and I'm hitting like a couple of the things at the same time. And then professional, like we got to grow in our profession, and what that look like is, and try to hit some of the goals that we want to, and whether you work or not, I think there's some kind of a profession that we all have so that we can, you know, give back in some ways to community. Could be volunteering, could be doing something like that. Yeah. So those are my 8 categories. Other people might have different categories, but most of the content that I care about and write about and share about hits one of those.
I like all 8.
Yeah.
I like them
I'm like,
all.
I need it. Do you have a checklist for this? Because I need to like post this on a bookmark.
You know, Elizabeth has all kinds of resources on her website.
I'll put
Oh my
it in the
gosh, she
chat.
does.
I'll put it in the chat for y'all.
Yeah.
We will make sure that
got
it gets in the show notes.
You've got the journal, you've got all kinds of stuff. Thank you that. And make sure we're going to tell you, I'll just tell you right now, happyhealthycaregiver.com has all kinds of chock full of awesome resources. And I subscribe to Elizabeth's newsletter because Elizabeth likes me better than Jay. But
I'm on there too. Because it's just a wealth of information.
I like you both. Do not make me pick.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm gonna say, there's so much information that I love. Oh, God, Jake, like we're right out of time. I don't like it.
She needs to come. We need to do a session with her, you know, just so she can like impart this wisdom, because this is the stuff everything comes from experience. And I think that's what's so fantastic for you, Elizabeth. I mean, there's so much you can learn book knowledge about caregiving, but you're like, man, I've been in it. It's been messy.
And
awful.
I'm still learning. Like sometimes like people will say, oh, here's the happy, healthy caregiver. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not calling myself that. This is a beacon of what we're all striving to be. Like I am a work in progress. So, but I think it's important. And that's why I love speaking to companies and different groups is because like, I wish that I heard somebody, just sharing their story and fast tracking me to resources and being like, oh, you're a caregiver. So that is so important to me. And it's a great way to kind of scale the message to people who may not know even what they are and how to even Google and find a podcast like yours or mine or whatever. So like, how do we break down those barriers? For me, it feels like getting out into the community and getting into the corporate worlds is how I'm trying to infiltrate as me and my one person army.
Yeah.
Well, at least you have a lot of cheerleaders because we count ourselves as one of those. It's one of your many cheerleaders that love you. You know what, though, JJ, it's time for sister questions.
Okay. Elizabeth, I know that do you have your journal right there beside you, your book?
Yes. Grab the journal.
Okay,
Grab the journal.
So she has this fantastic journal book. And so you can find it on Happy Healthy Caregiver as well. And it encourages your writing. But every time that you're videoed with her, she opens up that book like a wild woman and she asks you these questions. So open the book randomly.
Open your own book.
Just random. You have to pick anything. You're going to read the question and give us an answer.
What side, left or right?
Right.
Left.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. It was my question. It's left.
Oh, okay. I'll give you all a choice. It's in what way did a loss of something or someone transform you? Maybe that one's more obvious. In general, what's your self-care plan? Which one do y'all like?
I think
transformed. How are you transformed?
Transformed. Listen, like so many ways loss has transformed me. And I'm not just talking about like losing people. I'm talking about like losing, kind of the image of what you thought life was going to go like in a certain groove of your life or I lost my mom before I lost my mom, if that makes sense. Like she just kind of continued to decline and not just cognitively, but my mobility and all that. So how did it transform me? Like, well, look, I got a different career. Like I spent my career in IT and corporate strategy and gave myself a huge pay cut to to work with family caregivers. So, and I thought a million times, like when I was blogging and doing podcasts, and I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like, just hang it up and phone it in on your day job. Like, do that. Nope. So like constantly thought about quitting and maybe honestly, probably still think about it. Like, should I keep doing this? So that has transformed me and then transformed my self-care routine. Like self-care is a non-negotiable for me. Like it's happening. Getting my mammogram today, by the way.
Fantastic.
I didn't wear deodorant. That was my biggest problem. Like, I got to remember not to wear deodorant. And they always shame you if you like put your stuff
That's
on.
Exactly right. That is important for everyone to know as well.
That's a whole different podcast because I had that in the same thing. And then I had to think about it. Like, would you have judged me if I hadn't put on deodorant?
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm sweating out these sisters questions. So anyway, there's that. And then what was the other way it transformed? So self-care, business, and then just like we are prepared. Like my husband and I, we have conversations that we would not have had before probably. Yeah. Like we would have just been like in denial, like every other American about like our time here on earth.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So I have two.
Okay.
Because I can, and that's because I can. JJ's like, I don't care.
Your rules.
What would, based on everything that you know now, what would you advise your younger self?
What would I advise my younger self? And maybe this is talking, it's good that you asked this question, Natalie, because it's JJ keeps saying, you're just like Natalie. You're just like Natalie. Is like, caregiving was a big lesson for me on learning how to let go. And same with entrepreneurship. Like I've had to kind of let go of what I think the path should be like. Mm-hmm. And it has turned out okay. And sometimes it's turned out better. So I think just kind of letting go of expectations and kind of going with the flow and sitting back and just having faith that things are going to work out. I would tell my younger self that is like, it's going to be okay. Look at all this stuff that you've already like survived, a crazy move. Even when I was in middle school, I had to move from rural Pennsylvania to Georgia. That was traumatic. So all of those things, like you're a tough cookie and you can do hard things, but you do not have to do them alone. You've got a support system and people all around you.
That's it.
I love that. You're a tough cookie, but you don't have to do it alone. I am a recovering perfectionist. I still have that active on my treatment plan as well as cursing. And
same.
so, cause I still work on that. All right. And last question, cause this is my favorite one. JJ knows what it is. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? The one thing that you do just for you?
My favorite current guilty pleasure is I love it when I don't have to like rip myself out of bed in the morning. And I can get a cup of coffee and snuggle with my 2 dogs. And I play Wordle and I'll play the New York Times, all the free things. I play not all of them, 3 of them, Wordle, Connections, and the mini crossword with a cup of coffee and my dogs in bed. And if I'm really feeling guilty that day, I will also read a chapter of my book.
Now, the puzzles, those are all me. That is my thing.
JJ's a puzzler.
I'm a puzzler. I got to tell you.
And she would also hog the newspaper when we were children and not let us read it because she wanted to open all the untouched pages. And so I would sit there and
I don't want anybody messing with my stuff.
She was such a beagle.
I love those books when I was little, the fill in the blank books that you would get at Hallmark.
Yes.
Do y'all remember those?
Yes.
All About Me. And I still have some of mine downstairs. I need to go see what's in there.
They're probably worth millions of dollars.
Yeah,
that's exactly
Elizabeth,
right.
I have had so much fun with you today. You're just
so
you have so much good, heartfelt information though. You're just open to share.
And I've been leaking. I just leak.
I know. That's okay. We love you though.
Yeah.
We don't care. This is a judgment-free zone. We're like basically working out, but minus the calorie burn.
Yeah, that's true.
I know. Well, thank you so much for being on with us. And because our time is done. But guys, until we confess again, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Again, thank you so much for listening. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions podcast. Don't forget to visit our website to sign up for our newsletter. You'll also find the video recording of all of our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. Don't worry, all the details are included in the show notes below. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. You may be surprised to find out, but we are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have any medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC. Thank you for listening to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast.